Welcome to Owl Talk, brought to you by Rise Digital Learning and Strategy, where we explore digital education in the 21st century. I'm Daniel Villanueva, your host, and today I'm joined by Vamsee Makineni, a senior undergraduate student here at Rice University studying philosophy. Vamsee is also the co-creator of a new Coursera course on metacognition and a student teacher through the Student Talk course program offered here at Rice University's Center for Teaching Excellence. We are happy to have you join us, Vamsee, today and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you're from, and how you got to Rice University.
Yes, so again, thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to be here. So I actually was born in India. I moved to the U.S. When I was 3 years old with my parents, and I ended up in Austin, Texas. I then lived there for pretty much the rest of my life until I had to come to college. Now, in high school, I was very interested in philosophy, and I was also involved in the wrestling club. I was very interested in philosophy because I felt that philosophy really helped me think about concepts in a way that I've never thought about any other subject. And it let me understand my assumptions that I was making. And because of that, I was also interested in medicine. I was also interested in the human aspect of medicine and how you could have a practical impact on people. And so I wanted to become a pre-med. And I looked around at the different programs, and I realized that I wanted to stay close to my family in Austin, and I wanted a great teaching program as well. So I realized that Rice fit the bill for both, and so I decided to come here after I was admitted. And I've been here for the past 4 years, and I'll see where my path takes me from now on.
So you're now here and you're a philosophy student. How did you get involved and interested in teaching and learning science? You're going through these courses and you think about learning itself and how it can be studied and how it can be improved. At what moment were you in a class? Were you reading a textbook? Were you having discussions with a faculty member at which you said, this is something that's interesting that I want to explore a little bit more?
Yes, so I would say there was not just one key moment that immediately set off a transformation in my journey, but it was often multiple moments, often interleaved with each other, leading to my journey. So in high school, as I said, I was very interested in philosophy. I really enjoyed when I read my first philosophy book by Luc Ferry, how I could just understand the concepts in a way that I've never understood before. And the reason why I realized was because I was thinking about how I was thinking. And so I didn't realize it at that point. Later on, when I was reflecting, I realized it. But when I came to college, I also realized that I wanted to do better in my studies. I wanted to see how I can understand my topics and courses better. Because of that, I looked into learning science. I looked at multiple different research papers. I looked at different books. I looked at different articles and so on. I implemented the findings into my own studies. And I realized that throughout the process, I enjoyed it. The reason why is because I was thinking about how I was thinking. And that also made me realize why I like philosophy, because it exposed me to that same mental process. And because of that, I also became very interested in metacognition, which set me off in my learning journey to also help other people so they can realize that they can learn more than they think they can.
So when you say metacognition, that's a academic-based term that most academicians will clearly identify. But in plain language to people who are perhaps listening to the podcast outside of academia, what does that mean in plain language, and why should busy students or working professionals or people outside of a university setting really care about metacognition?
Yes, so you are perfectly right. Metacognition is a more academic-esque term. In plain language, it's thinking about how you are thinking. For example, I could be thinking about what I ate yesterday and how great it was. That's thinking. Thinking about how I'm thinking would be a level above that. It would be like, hey, so I realized that I wore a suit yesterday and it didn't match my outfit. Maybe I should have actually picked the suit based on some other criteria. Now that is thinking about how you're thinking. And I feel that this metacognition is very important for not just students, but professionals in the workplace as well. Because when you are thinking about how you're thinking, you're not just letting your thinking processes take a hold of you. You are controlling yourself, your thinking processes, so you can improve in the future. When you're a professional, you often have multiple projects. And because of that, you have to figure out the most effective way to deliver some product or how to collaborate. When you think about how you're thinking or you're utilizing metacognition, you can improve on your process, whether you're a student or professional. And you could really just understand better and improve more rapidly.
So you're into metacognition, you're starting to read some research articles, you're taking your philosophy classes and reading. At what point do you think, you know what, I want to explore this a little further, and I want to think about teaching one of these courses? How did you hear about the opportunity with the Center for Teaching Excellence and their opportunity for the 1 hour course? And how did you go about stepping into that role?
Yes, so I became interested in teaching in this aspect I was actually relatively early on in my college experience. I believe I was a freshman, and I was taking some relatively conceptually heavy courses taught by Christos Mantelides, Professor Christos Mantelides of the math department. I was taking Math 221 and 222, and I realized that thinking about how you're thinking is very important if you want to understand the deeper abstract structures of mathematics and apply to new problems. And so because of that, I realized, okay, so this is an important thing that, is important for me, but I also realized that other people need this as well. And so I realized that Rice actually gives you the opportunity through the Center for Teaching Excellence to teach a 1-credit college course that other undergraduate students can take. Of course, other people can audit it as well.
And how did you hear about that? Was it a flyer? Did you get an email? How did you hear about their program?
Yes, I believe I actually learned about the program maybe even before I came to Rice, because when I came to Rice, I made sure to look at all the different opportunities on my computer, and that was one of the very interesting ones that stood out to me. And in spring 2024, I took a pedagogy course to teach my actual course the next year.
And that pedagogy course was taught by a Rice faculty member or another student?
I believe, yes, it was taught by Rice faculty member, Dr. Parsons.
Okay. And so you signed up as part of your degree program, or is that pedagogy course something outside of your degree program, but you were interested in teaching?
Yes, it is not part of my degree course. I believe it's not part of anybody's degree course. It's just because students have an interest, often academic, but something also fun that they want to introduce to other undergraduate students to partake in that fun.
And what did the pedagogy course teach you? What did you learn in that class that then said, okay, I'm aware of the Center for Excellence course availability. I'm now involved and interested in metacognition. I'm now taking this pedagogy course. What did you learn from the course, and what there then plugged into you being able to actually teach a course?
So I thought the pedagogy course was absolutely necessary. It was only 1 credit hour as well, but we learned how to set learning objectives. And once we set the learning objectives, we set the course around that. Oftentimes, I feel that when you're starting out, maybe even as an instructor or TA or someone as anybody designing a course or teaching one, you may start out thinking about stuff that you just want to put in the course. But that's actually the wrong approach, which I learned about. Instead, you want to think about what you want the students to gain, the skills, the learning objectives, what you want them to practically achieve or have by the end of the course. And then you could plan your syllabus around that. So I thought the pedagogy course I'd taken was amazing. Yeah.
So you've taken the course, the pedagogy course, and you're now ready to sign up. Is there a process you go through for the Center for Teaching Excellence? Do they interview you? How do you apply and get selected to teach the course?
Yes, so I'm very thankful. I believe for the pedagogy course, there was no formal registration process in the sense that they have to vet you in a way. And that actually works out to be an advantage because you take the pedagogy course, you sign up for it on your course schedule. And through it, you are actually graded on the different assignments that they give you. And because anybody that's a Rice undergraduate student can teach it, we all have different interests, and we're allowed to give them and share them with the Rice community. So I thought that was very powerful.
So you put your course out there, and how did you design the in-person course for the undergraduate students? Did you work with someone? Did you work with the Center for Teaching Excellence? Tell us about how you designed the course, and then how the course went. How many students enrolled? What was your experience as a teacher facilitating to your peers?
Yes. So I believe when you are actually registering your course after the pedagogy course, you have to have a faculty member, and you have to talk with a faculty member. Personally, I talked with Dr. Cummins Munoz, and I thought her advice was very helpful. She taught me how to think about teaching the course. And I'm actually, as a side note, I'm working with her on my effective learning workshop, which we'll get into later.
And what does she teach, and how did you meet her?
She was actually my freshman writing intensive seminar professor. I believe at Rice, every freshman undergraduate has to take a FWIS, or freshman writing intensive seminar. So just to ensure that their writing skills are up to par and they can handle the college level workload.
So that's how you met her.
Yes.
So you reach back out to Dr. Munoz and you say, hey, I'm interested in partnering with you or having you work with me on the design of that course. How long did that take? Is that a month, 6 months? How long was that engagement?
So the engagement was, at least leading up to it, it was just a couple of chats that we had, oftentimes right behind Fondren Library. And in terms of the actual course development, we had around 4 students at the beginning, or at least by the end of the course. We had more in the beginning, but of course, students drop out. They have different responsibilities and obligations.
Sure. So what did you learn with teaching the course? You have these students, you prepared it with Dr. Munoz, you're ready to teach it. What did you, as a student, now learn being on the faculty side of it? And what was kind of the most interesting thing you took away from that experience as a student teacher?
Yes, so one lesson that I realized that I believe that every student does is they're often given certain concepts by a professor, but they might not fully digest them in the course of the class. And because of that, they might just nod along and say that they understand, just to, possibly not hurt the professor's feelings, because they want to make them feel like, they're a great professor, and they oftentimes are. But there can often be a mismatch between what the professor knows and the way that you should teach a student so they can understand. I've noticed that as well, because at the beginning, I've noticed that there was a little less engagement than I would have liked, and I wanted to actually understand whether they understood the concepts, because oftentimes these learning principles, although were relatively concrete frameworks, that you had to implement them based on your own learning experiences and what you're learning at the time. So you have to adapt it based on your learning needs. And so because of that, I really decided to center the course around mind mapping. With mind mapping, it's a visual tool that lets you take ideas and connect them in such a way that it's coherent and at least facilitates the understanding of a topic. And whenever I saw the mind mapping, they didn't even have to say anything, because then I could see how well they could understand the different assignments, and we could talk back and forth and have a chat about how they're thinking about it, and I could give pointers, and I enjoyed that process.
So now you've taught the course and you're going along your degree program. And at what point do you then think about turning this into a Coursera course and partnering with a faculty member to really offer, a massive online course offering in metacognition? Where did you get that idea and concept? And then walk me through the process of how you went from this idea to a in-person student-teacher kind of course to now a massive online course with Coursera.
Yes, so you're definitely right. It is a big step up to go from a student-taught course to something that is sponsored by the university, has the backing of the university, and can be taken by anyone as long as they have internet access. How I went through that process was I first realized that I really enjoyed teaching the course. I want these principles to be available to everyone, regardless of where they are. And I also enjoy talking with my students and thinking about how they're thinking about it, which influenced my teaching process as well. So I realized that, an online course would be a great way for us to transition. Of course, as a student, I realized that this will be a bit difficult at the time because I wasn't a faculty member. So I had to talk with some different members. I talked with Professor Hafner first, who was a physics professor here. I emailed him and he forwarded me to someone else. And that person forwarded me to Dr. Jared Stenson, who is the co-creator of the course as well. And he's a physics professor here at Rice. Through him, I shared my theoretical experience in the different learning tools and principles, and I could see his eyes light up because the way he taught his intro physics courses for pre-meds, he realized that he was also trying to articulate the very same principles, but he was putting it into a practical application. And so we realized that we could team up, and I could have my theory and his practical experience be a great boon for the different online learners. We had to then talk with Rice Online. We have Akil Bennett, which worked as a video producer. We have Emily McBroom, who was the course designer, and of course, me and Dr. Jared Stenson.
So walk us through that process. You're now approved. You're excited as a current undergraduate student partnering with one of our distinguished university faculty members to offer it. You've gotten the approval for Rice Online. You now have your course designer. You now have your video producer. Walk us through that process of course design. How and what was asked of you? What did you have to prepare? What did you find insightful? And perhaps what advice would you give to others who are thinking about starting a Coursera course, whether they're a faculty member or a current student?
Yes. So now that we are on the course, I realized that it was a learning experience for everyone because we had all these different backgrounds. One knew how to properly put on video the different activities that we're doing. One knew how to translate this for online learners, and one had theoretical knowledge. One had the more practical experience in learning how to learn. And because of that, we all had to learn from each other. I would say one thing that I've learned from the course when I was teaching it is how many blind spots one might have. Particularly, I had the very theoretical knowledge, and I was very ambitious. I might say, hey, I want students to learn this, but I realized that even with the online format, that would be difficult. Even the online format may even complicate certain stuff because students can't check their understanding by raising their hands and so on. But of course, there is the feature where you can ask questions on Coursera, but still. I would say for faculty members who would want to teach a course on Coursera or even, I believe, EDX, Rice has those as well. One thing I would think about is how would you want to translate your physical course that you've ideally taught before and the online one as well? Why do you feel that the online one is useful? And do you feel that it's actually amenable to translate the physical course to an online one? So those are questions I would keep in mind.
So the course is up and live. There's a number of students already engaged in the course. Tell us a little bit about the course. What is the course designed to do? And what do you, as a co-creator, hope that learners who complete the course, what do they get out of it? What do you hope that they learn? And what does someone who is considering taking the course need to know about what they're going to learn?
Yes. So my main takeaway that I want for the learner at the very end, I want you to become more conscious of your thinking process. That is the baseline. That is the overall goal. And now, how we go about achieving that. We achieve that through 4 modules. Really, the learning process has a couple of different stages, not necessarily chronological. For example, we have the stage where you initially build just a basic understanding or scaffold of what you're learning. And you achieve that by asking different questions like what, why, how, and what if. There is the process where you start asking more questions and you have to now try to build it more effectively. That is through chunking and mind mapping. And there is the process where, okay, you need to self-assess how well you know that knowledge. Now that can be done through a variety of techniques like the Feynman technique, or teaching, generating your own problems, doing problems and reviewing them effectively, blurting, even flashcards for certain concepts. So that's how I divided up the course as well. Module 1 was habits of the healthy learner, which we often talked about the basics, like asking questions and just trying to build that knowledge. How do you go about using your questions to guide your curiosity? Module 2, we dealt more with chunking. How do you group up ideas that are closely related? How do you overcome certain memory limitations? Module 3, we dealt with mind mapping. Now that we try to build your understanding of a topic more in depth, how do you group up those chunks? How do you relate them in a coherent manner? Module 4 was the spaced interleaving retrieval, which is just a fancy term for an effective revision schedule with using different techniques and spacing it out properly as well.
So if someone completes the Coursera course and they're they've now been exposed to chunking, mind mapping, active recall, or review, what is the most important thing that you hope that they take away from the course and that they can do right after the course to have the most impact on their learning?
Yes. So one thing I would say that they can have the most impact on their learning is the Kolb's experiential learning cycle is one of them. That is, I want them to understand their learning process and improve it using the tools. I'd say one very concrete thing that you can do right after is maybe create a spaced interleaving retrieval schedule or the revision schedule, because oftentimes knowledge fades. There's a forgetting curve, and you want to try to stop yourself from or dampen that forgetting curve and increase it. And you can do that with an effective revision schedule using different techniques. And just knowing how to strengthen your knowledge, I think, is very great for learners. It's a key skill for anyone to have, even professionals.
So that scheduling technique that you just referred to, how would someone, in a practical sense, right? So they're a professional learner, they're a professional worker, or they're a student, actually take what you just said and say, okay, this is what I'm going to apply to it today in a non-academic way. What does that look like? Give me an example.
Yes. So, for example, professional. They don't have much time in their schedule. Even as an adult, you have many obligations. And because of that, you have just pockets of time. And how you might implement certain a revision schedule is, okay, you know what, today I will just try to recall everything that I've learned in this 30 minutes of time that I have between, these two meetings. And that is the technique called blurting. And when you blurt, you can also write down how you connect the different concepts and figure out where the holes were in your knowledge, or even where concepts you just don't know they might relate to the rest of the picture. Even then you could say in your revision schedule, okay, and 2 to 3 days from now on, I will think about creating my own problems based on my holes in knowledge. I could say, okay, what happens if I put this concept here? Or what happens if I am late for this presentation? Or what happens if, there are many different scenarios that you can ask yourself using these different concepts that is generating problems you can ask in 2 to 3 days. A week later, you might then do a big review, and you can even try to teach it to someone else, like maybe a colleague in the time that you have. So this is a spaced revision schedule using these different techniques that is amenable to working professionals based on the time that they have.
So the course is now live. You have a lot of people already in it. Any initial feedback from people who've been in the course or completed it thus far?
Yes. So because it is a very new course, we haven't received much new feedback yet. But I have shown the course to my peers, and they're very happy with the course. They're happy with just how professional it was, and I was also very happy teaching the course. And yeah, so I would say, at least for the beginning, it's a good start, but we're definitely going to see a lot more learners take the course, and I'm happy to see more feedback and see where I can even improve as well.
So you've done the Coursera course and we've done the call course. Now you've moved it into a workshop. I understand you've already hosted one of the 3 series. So tell us a little bit about the workshop, how the first one went, and what you're doing in workshop 2 and 3.
I was very happy with the results of the first workshop. And we had around 22 students show up from all over. They were from some psychology students, some pre-med students, some math students, and so on. What the workshop in general was about is based on many of the same topics taught in my Art of Understanding Concepts, the CALL course, and the Coursera course as well. But of course, this is just a 3-session workshop. Because of that, I had to really trim the fat and decide on which principles would be the most core to people's understanding. So my main goal for the course was just, I want you to become a more confident learner, and I want you to be able to achieve your academic goals. The way we do that is by understanding the learning process. I want them to understand that they are a part of the learning process, and I want them to understand the power they have over it. So in the first workshop, what we taught was generating questions. So what, why, how, and what if. Like, what is this object or concept and idea? Why is it important? How is it related to these other ones that I see in the page or lecture notes? What if I put this concept in this scenario? You're really testing yourself there. So that was the majority of the first workshop. The second workshop is going to be based on chunking and mind mapping. But of course, because it's only a session, I won't go into too much in depth. But I really enjoy the format because we can have an entire group working together on the same mind map, for example. The third session, which we held on February 10th, will be on the spaced interleaving retrieval, which is, of course, is the spaced revision schedule using the different techniques.
So you've become sort of an internal expert on metacognition through your research and partnership. The world is changing, and AI, artificial intelligence, is at the forefront of our work in education. How do you see AI intersecting with metacognition? Do you think it's helpful? Do you think it's dangerous? And can it impact metacognition in some way?
I think that AI is a tool, and at least it stands right now, and how helpful it is depends on the way that you use it. For example, there's this term that metacognition researchers, or even just people in cognitive science psychology, use, which is cognitive load. But for our purposes, let's just say it's how much thinking that you're doing, right? How hard it is to think. When you're using AI, you can't offload too much of your thinking onto it. But I believe AI is amazing. It can serve as a companion for you to help refine your knowledge. It can serve as an initial step in the learning process. For example, when you come across a new topic, there are going to be many concepts. And you can ask AI just a cursory understanding. What is it? Just so you can get a basic scaffold of what they are. And from there on, you can use other resources outside of AI, if you want, to try to build a stronger knowledge using these why, how, what if questions. And so, of course, you don't want AI to just solve your problems. You don't want to just input, say, hey, what is the answer to this? If you do that, then you're offloading too much of your thinking. And in that case, that could be dangerous. Instead, you can use it as a companion and say, I answered this question, I got it wrong. Why do you believe that this is wrong? What is the explanation? And then you can update your thinking process based on that.
So the cognitive offload in AI, it's an interesting point, right? Cognitive offloading in terms of there are things that as every human being goes through a busy schedule that you do want to offload. You don't want to think about this. You don't want to think about that. However, there are new things that you bring on, right? So where do you find that balance of the offloading to AI where it still is responsible? It can be helpful, but it's not detrimental to your overall thinking?
That is a great question. That's one I've also been grappling with. One pointer that I can give out is think about the work that you can do in an hour or a couple of minutes from now, but that won't make you a better thinker. Put yourself in that hypothetical scenario. That is, think about the tedious work that you might have to do, and one which is not helpful to your learning. In that case, AI is amazing. It can automate it. It could speed up the process. And instead, you, the learner, can focus on the learning process. And in that way, if you can put yourself in the hypothetical scenario, you can answer what I think I need to learn, what is not necessary to my learning, but has to be a part of it. Then you can know how to use AI.
So you've been a student. You came in. You had a wonderful experience. You were a student teacher. You taught a course. You partnered with Rice Online to teach a Coursera course. Now you're teaching a workshop, right? You're a senior, so you're graduating this year. Tell us about your overall Rice experience and what's next for you. Where are you going next? What do you hope to do? And will you still keep metacognition kind of at the center of your learning moving forward?
Yes. So overall, I would say my Rice experience has been amazing. I can say at least directed towards the students and maybe even some faculty members who are listening to this podcast. Uh, Life and even just certain segments like college are what you make of it. So you should definitely be very proactive. When you're going to college, you should look at all the different experiences and really figure out, prioritize which ones that you need, which is something that I've been working on as well, prioritizing which activities, which clubs are most important to me, in focusing, putting my resources into them rather than some other tangential ones. So I'd say I really enjoyed this process at Rice. I've had many opportunities here to explore, learn. I would say in terms of what would be next for me, I'm definitely going to keep my options open. We're going to see what happens. But I'm definitely going to keep, metacognition at the heart of what I'm doing, because this is a meta skill. It's a skill that lets me translate my learning into, it translates my learning to something that can come quicker. It speeds up learning. It makes it more efficient. Learning is more effective. I can teach my potential future colleagues better. I can teach them how to learn, and so they can speed up their learning, can become more rapid. So I really enjoy metacognition, and we're going to see where it takes me in the future. Yeah.
So, we're part of Rice Digital Learning and Strategy. So how do you foresee digital learning and metacognition moving forward in the future for maybe faculty out there who only teach exclusively online, or students who are in online programs, or institutions that are grappling with artificial intelligence and how they move forward? Where do you see the future of digital learning and metacognition intersecting?
I definitely feel that digital learning can become even more expansive. And as we've seen, it already has, with all these new courses being offered, with these new AI models, even there are different AI tutors now. And I feel that this is definitely the future of learning, because students can, without even a physical faculty member, they can learn by themselves. In this case, metacognition is even more important, right? Because you have to think about how you're thinking. Of course, you have some kind of online resource or tutor, but then it's really on you. The onus is on you to understand your thinking processes and to take control of them and understand them better.
So thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a great conversation, learning about you as a student, learning about the process of digital learning, both for the Coursera course and then the 2 in-person workshops and course that you designed. We are grateful for you to share your story. Rice University is a fantastic university that affords our students the opportunities to teach online, in person, as well as discovering new research along the way, and becoming a philosopher as you move forward in your next iteration of work. So from all of us here at Rice Digital Learning, thank you for listening. We hope that you will join us next time on Owl Talk. You can learn more about Owl Talk and Rice Digital Learning at digital.rice.edu. Thanks so much.